While defense attorneys say their client is innocent of the charges.
I think, as everyone knows, Mr. Kushner is one of the most successful businessmen in the United States and one of the great philanthropists of this century. We are taking the position at this time that these charges are entirely without merit, entirely baseless. Mr. Kushner is confident that when this matter is ultimately resolved in a public courtroom, he will be completely exonerated.
I mean, it's one of the most loathsome, disgusting crimes that I prosecuted when I was U.S. Attorney. And I was U.S. Attorney in New Jersey, Margaret, so we had some loathsome and disgusting crime going on there.
Governor McGreevy's top political fundraiser was arrested today on obstruction of justice and related federal charges. New Jersey-based developer Charles Kushner is charged with hiring a prostitute to blackmail 2 witnesses in a federal investigation where he is a target.
If a guy hires a prostitute to seduce his brother-in-law and videotapes it and then sends the videotape to his sister to attempt to intimidate her from testifying before a grand jury, do I really need any more justification than that?
State House correspondent Jim Hooker has the story.
Kushner, a major Democratic campaign contributor and political player who'd served briefly on the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey and was once nominated by Governor McGreevy to head the authority's board, sat in handcuffs before a U.S. magistrate in federal court in Newark. He's charged with attempting to intimidate witnesses in a separate probe by the U.S. Attorney's Office involving his real estate holdings and federal campaign contribution.
Brother-in-law and former employee turned on him and became a witness for the prosecution. With Joseph. The duo dubbed their newly formed business Kushner Companies. Months later, Joseph passed away from a stroke at the age of 62. Undeterred, Charles continued to grow the business, eventually amassing more than 25,000 apartments, as well as hotels, commercial real estate, and industrial and retail space.
Jared Kushner's father says the family business is a target of the president's political opponents. Kushner calling them, quote, Trump haters.
Kushner. I had the honor to look into that case and to dig into that. And I can say I don't think there's anyone more deserving than Charles Kushner. I don't think he would ask for this himself. I'm not aware of anybody asking for this. I think that he is someone that was a product of Chris Christie, for example, trying to make a name for himself. And people like that get caught up sometimes in investigations. You do have to look at it, and you have to ask the president to make pardons and commutations, because sometimes he's the only authority that can do so.
$1.5 billion in fresh capital this year. But it was the family's own missteps when scouring the globe looking for capital that drew unwanted attention to its crown jewel that's now a financial and political albatross, 666 Fifth Avenue, a 41-story tower in Midtown Manhattan that Kushner Companies bought for a record-breaking $1.8 billion.
She says living conditions became unbearable in 2013 after the building was sold and the new landlord began to renovate.
This is where the ceiling caved in.
But even when she was offered $10,000 to leave, she refused to give up her rent-stabilized lease.
It appears that Kushner Companies deliberately used invasive and destructive construction practices to harass tenants out of their apartments. And to hide what it was doing from the government, it had falsified not 1, not 2, not 3 permit applications, but 80 permit applications.
Lying on permit applications is a crime punishable by a fine or imprisonment.
Now, you may have heard about this development last month when Jared Kushner's sister pitched it to investors in China. Why the selective secrecy? For one thing, Nicole Kushner-Meyer may have thought twice about the optics, or my optics, of trading on her family connection to the president, though Kushner Companies later said Meyer, quote, apologizes if that mention of her brother was in any way interpreted as an attempt to lure investors, unquote. But also iffy the investment itself, criticized for selling U.S. citizenship for cash, the embattled EB-5 visa program, in which foreigners who ante up $1 million to create 10 U.S. jobs are granted permanent residency and eventual U.S. citizenship for themselves and for all immediate family members under age 21.